This is the best outreach method for SMMA and agency owners in 2020. Today I'm actually trying out a different style of video. I'm gonna be hopping on my computer and walking you through a slideshow that I've put together for you guys. Before I do that real quick, I just wanna give a little background info on me. My name is Jaime, for those of you who are new to this channel, and I started my agency a year and a half ago and managed to scale my agency to 6 figures in 9 months. Now, this is not to brag, this is not to, look at me. And in fact, it really wasn't easy. I worked a ton and I struggled a ton. And my main struggle during those 9 months was lead generation and signing clients. At the same time, I was relieved to see that other agency owners and SMA owners were struggling with the same thing. Maybe they had an A team, they had the best systems and processes in place. They could churn out results for their clients like no one else, but their problem was signing clients. And so during those 9 months, I pretty much tested every single variable possible. And after months and months of failure, I started to get really good results and creating this very, this full pipeline of leads and landing meetings on autopilot to a point where I managed to sign clients and scale my agency to that 6-figure mark. Now what I'm doing is I'm teaching others on YouTube completely for free the outreach and sales part of building an agency, which is really the biggest bottleneck I see for agency owners out there. And so that's enough about me. Let's go ahead and hop on my computer and I'm going to be walking you through this slideshow. Okay, so here we are inside my computer. If you guys probably could see the setup that I've got going on here, I'm trying this out, but it's hella clunky. So yeah, let's get right into this and let's see how this plays out. So the best outreach method for SMA in 2020, updated, improved, and to the point. Okay, this presentation, and you'll soon realize it's not going to be the cookie cutter approach to outreach. I'm not going to be saying this is the best outreach. I'm not going to be vouching for a specific outreach method. It's going to be a very systematic and scientific way of arriving at the best outreach method for you. And so that's what I want you guys to keep in mind throughout this presentation. Now, I say SMA here, but really it's what I want to focus it on is for all agency owners out there. This applies to any service that you're offering, whether that's social media marketing, whether that's copywriting, whatever it is, this still applies to you. And so if you're selling anything online to clients, this applies to you. So let's get right into it. First, you need to understand this. This is not there's no one best outreach method in client outreach. There's not one best outreach method for sales. There are only superior outreach methods. It really depends on a number of factors. And so these are the factors and the things that it depends on and that I've identified throughout my experience that choosing the best outreach method depends on, and that the choice of your outreach method depends on. And so the first thing is your service. Different services will require different sales processes. If, for example, your service is a high ticket offer or item, for example, let's just put the example of you're selling a very high ticket course, let's just say 5 to 10K course, to get that sale, before the sale, you'd probably have the prospect hop on a call and then be closed on a call by a sales rep or a high ticket closer. And so yeah, different services will require different sales processes. For example, if your service is very, very low tier, for example, it could be social media management and you're just starting out and you're charging $400 to $500 a month to each client, then in that event, if for example you have good case studies, or you just have a very good personal brand, or for example you've conveyed enough social proof and just your online standing is good enough, you might not even need a meeting, right? So it really depends on the service. The second thing it depends on is the niche. Your prospects will hang out in different places depending on their niche, and they will respond and be attracted to different things. Number 3 is your personality. Different people are suited for different methods. One man's strength is another man's weakness. Okay, understand that. Number 4 is your location. Getting accustomed to the ways, people expect to be reached out to in specific countries. This really applies if your service is bound by a geographical location, right? If, for example, like me, your service is Facebook ads and paid ads for e-com clients, then you can have clients all over the world, and location is no limit to the, it really doesn't now limit your outreach, right? So yeah, location is important. And number 5, your current available resources. This is quite important, and this is something that people don't actually think about enough, is how much money and time are you willing and able to invest into it to still get results, right? Because look, if you're, and I'll get into this in much more detail, but look, if you've got a 9 to 5 or you're doing this part-time, you're trying to start out your agency, but you don't quite know, you don't really have the time, but maybe you've got a bit of money that you can invest into it, then a complete different outreach method should be implemented, right, in this case. But if time is more abundant to you than money, then you probably have to find it out at the start, because you just don't have the money to invest in softwares that can systemize that whole process, right? So yeah, these are the 5 different factors, and by the end of this video, you'll be able to self-diagnose and choose what the best outreach method is for you. And so that's really one of the the very important things that I want you guys to take away from this video, is that by the end of this video, you're going to be able to diagnose yourself and really pinpoint the outreach methods that best suit you, your niche, your location, etc., these factors that we spoke about here. So let's dig into it. Now, your service. The first thing that you want to consider with your service, as I said here, is the price point. As I said, higher tier services will require more vetting, and you will need to build more trust and authority. For example, something like online advertising will require a stronger sales process than social media management, because more resources will be allocated to the former one, and so more trust needs to be built. This, especially true in my experience. For example, when I've, at this point, my agency really just goes for the bigger clients, right? And so with these bigger clients, there tends to be a lot more vetting, right? There tends to be a lot more top management that needs to be involved in the decision, etc., etc. And so there needs to be a lot more vetting. A lot of people will require to see specific things, for example, past results, etc., etc. And so the whole process becomes a lot. It becomes a lot more time-consuming, and you need a higher degree of expertise. But if you're offering social media management and you're charging $400 per month for your services, they're not really going to expect you to go to that length to convince them, right? And if they do, to be honest, you might as well pass on them, because they don't really see the value. If they can't really pay $400 a month for social media management, then they're probably not a very healthy business, and you kind of want to stay away from that, because there's a ton of fish in the ocean, right? So yeah, that's the price point. Then the second thing is the nature of your service. This is something that a lot of people don't talk about, right? Your outreach process will be the first insight into your work by a prospect. 99.9% of people forget this. Use this as an opportunity to show it off. In many cases, it is your chance to show your skill. For example, if you're offering copywriting, email would be the best outreach method that would suit you. It's an opportunity for you to showcase your product, your service. For example, one of the things that I do is, when I do outreach, I incorporate a lot of video, because I like video. I think it's one of my strengths, although you may not think so. But really, I try to incorporate that, and especially because I think video, I can be a lot more persuasive. They can actually see me. They can see that they can see my face. They can see my hand gestures. They can see the way I carry myself, etc., etc. So what I've seen is that plays to my strength. So really find what the nature of your service is, and also find what your strengths are. And then use the outreach to play to your advantage when they're making a decision whether to work with you or not. So that's the service. The next thing is your niche. Now, what you need to do is you need to understand their typical day. Where are your prospects more likely to be? Where are they more likely to be hanging out? And apologies for some of the grammar mistakes here, but I just want to get this out to you guys. But yeah, you need to really figure out where they're going to be hanging out, and really understand their day, right? For example, if you're reaching out to a restaurant and you're calling them up and you're hitting them up via phone, chances are that's not the best, that's not the best thing to do, because their typical day is talking to clients, just a very, very busy and client-facing day. And so they're going to be running around the whole day. And so calling them is going to be an inconvenience for them. And so don't do that. Really understand what the typical day looks like for them, and then understand where you can reach them best. Next is receptiveness and saturation. This is very, very important. Realize that your prospect receives a ton of outreach a day. No matter how good yours is, it's of no use if they don't even open it, or even worse, see it. Figure out the platforms where your prospect is going to be more receptive to your outreach. For example, as I said here, cold calling a clinic or cold calling a restaurant or a successful clinic is not really a good idea, because it's very client-facing, they're running around a lot, and it's not the best idea. And Instagram and Facebook DMs are not a good idea for personal brands and influencers, for example. If you're trying to reach out an influencer that has a big personal brand, for example, your niche is coaches and personal brands, Instagram is probably not the best place to do that, simply because they probably get a ton of DMs and they're just going to treat you as spam. But if you get their email and send them an email, they're probably going to check that out, because pretty much every business person checks out their email, and it's not as saturated as an Instagram DM will be. And so that's the niche. Now, number 3 is your personality. Comfort. What are you most comfortable with? This does not necessarily mean taking the easy way out, but it really means playing to your strengths. Now, I'm not saying don't do this because you're not it's the easy way out, right? What I'm saying here is see what you're most comfortable from scratch. See what your strengths are from scratch and play to those. Okay, if you're, for example, if you're killer at writing emails, do that. Probably if you're very, very camera shy, or you're just not very good on camera, don't do don't necessarily do as much video outreach. Try it out, see how it performs, because I truly believe that we're very malleable, right? We can learn very quickly, and if we put our mind to something, we can really develop, right, as people. But when you're just starting out, you really want to play to your strengths, because that's really going to minimize, first of all, the learning curve and the time that you take to get results. And so that's the first thing that I would say. Now, the second thing is skills. If your communication skills are great, something like cold calling might be better suited for you. If you can write killer copy, messaging is the way. This I already covered in comfort. So number 3 is location. You really need to understand the landscape. This only applies if your service is bound by location. If it is, understand the possible limitations you may face in your country and where people expect and do not expect nor want to be reached out to. On which platforms. For example, I know for a fact that, and this, you might find this a bit weird, but I know for a fact that the US, LinkedIn, they see as a platform of, to start business relationships. They're much more open to new things, whereas with, in the UK, for example, it requires a ton more. It's more cold. You need to really build out the trust, and you might need a bunch of video audits to really to really have them trust you. Whereas the US, for example, they're much more open and more willing to try new things and to jump on opportunities if it makes sense, right? No one wants to get scammed, right? So yeah, understand the landscape of your country. For example, I know some countries that really just despise cold calling, and for some for some of them it's not even allowed. And so really just take a look at what is seen as normal in your country to what is seen as normal business interaction in your country, and then apply those when you're doing outreach. So that's the first thing. And second thing is the tone. Understand the tone people use when doing business together. Some countries are more to the point and aggressive, whereas in other countries it's about establishing rapport, building trust, and slowly breaking down walls. This goes back to what I was saying about the UK versus the US. In the US, it can be, business is done much more to the point, much more aggressive. This is what I found from experience, and also from talking to a bunch of colleagues. Everyone knows everyone's trying to look for a win-win, and everyone knows what they're getting, and it's just much more straight to the point. Also, they're not as, they're much more open to talking about money, fees, how much X is making, etc., etc. And so, whereas in the UK, for example, you need to establish a lot more rapport. You need to kind of keep distances at first until they, you build that trust as well, and you slowly break down the walls. And so that's location. And lastly, available resources. Number one, scale. Remember, you yourself, the flesh, you in the flesh is not scalable. Bits on a computer, though, are. And I always recommend finding the most suitable outreach method and then the niche, because depending on the time you have available, for example, you're working a 9 to 5, you'd be able to get results with specific methods that you would not with others. Let me explain this, right? What I recommend, when someone comes to me or even to my coaching students, what I recommend is first see what your current lifestyle is, see what your available resources are in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of really just analyze and diagnose your current lifestyle. If you've got a job, for example, and if you don't really have much time to invest into actually growing the agency, but you still want to sign clients and still get results, but you actually have resources, then you really don't want to pick a niche where you need to cold call, where you need to visit, businesses, where business owners expect to meet in person, because that's just not going to be able to happen, right? Because from 9 to 5, you're locked in. And so what I tell them is, for example, if you have very little time, what you can do is pick a niche that is completely online, right? You don't have to, first of all, meet with clients. Because they don't have they don't really have a physical location like e-commerce businesses, or clients that don't need to be reached out on the phone, because that requires you picking up the phone and actually calling. That's not scalable. Whereas if you pick e-commerce, you can actually automate, and I have a video on this. You can check it out right here. With e-commerce, you can pretty much automate. You can automate the outreach via email or LinkedIn. You can build out sequences, and you can pretty much land meetings on autopilot. And you can invest into some really good softwares that way. And so you don't have to invest that much time into outreach and still get results, right? And so it's all about diagnosing your lifestyle, seeing what niches fit that lifestyle so that you can still get results, right? The last thing we want to do is sacrifice results. And so that's why I always recommend, diagnose your lifestyle and then pick the outreach method that best suits you, and then pick the niche that suits that outreach method. It's completely backwards, but it works, right? It's the best way to do it. Because as I said, outreach is the biggest roadblock and the biggest bottleneck that as agency owners, and as an agency owner yourself, or if you don't have an agency and you're starting to, you want to start out, you're going to have, right? And so, for example, if you're working full-time and one of the few outreach methods that can usually get results for you is cold calls, it's going to take a while until you land your first client. Whereas you could certainly automate LinkedIn messages and emails and land meetings on autopilot in a different niche where the most suitable outreach is LinkedIn and email, right? So that's the scale. And lastly, the money. If you have money to start with, investing in softwares that will automate and systemize your outreach will be extremely revenue generating and time saving for you. Here we cover this. Very, very important thing to keep in mind. So as I said, what I recommend is to always determine your most suitable outreach method first, and then pick a niche and service that you're passionate about in which you can close clients using that outreach method and not sacrificing results, right? The reason being, outreach is the biggest bottleneck for most agency owners. If you can sort this out from the start, you'll have much greater success and faster. So, guys, that is pretty much that's pretty much it for this presentation. I hope you guys like this style. I hope this presentation was of value. I apologize for the little grammar mistakes that I had in there. But yeah, I just wanted to get this out as soon as I possibly could, because I really truly believe that a lot of people are struggling with this right now, and it can literally be solved by, first of all, self-diagnosing you as a person, what you're like, and then working backwards, right? Seeing diagnosing your lifestyle, seeing what outreach method best suits you, and then picking your niche and the service even that you want to offer. So, guys, if you have any questions, any comments you want me to answer as well, leave them down below. If you have any video ideas or any topic that you want me to cover, also leave them down below. And that would be it for this video. Also guys, if you enjoyed this video, like this video. It really helps out a ton. It helps out the channel, helps out with the algorithm. And so I really appreciate if you like this video. Also, if you like this content, there's so much more that I'm putting out in the upcoming week. I'm actually uploading 3 times a week, and so go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I always say this, but there's a ton of bluff out there in this industry of people telling you to do this, to do that, giving you advice when they haven't actually been through it and they haven't actually gotten, you know, amazing results. You know, they might have a little, you know, clinic, restaurant, or a little dentist in there as clients, but really they're not getting predictable and consistent results for their agency, and they really haven't taken that the agency to new heights. On my YouTube channel, I'm sharing all my advice and everything I've learned throughout my journey, completely for free. And so go ahead and subscribe to that channel, to my channel, if you want to check this out. Guys, hope everything is going well in your journey. Keep at it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.